When Dario revived his family's winery here in the Napa Valley, and this is about 1976, the original purchase he made was for about 2.5 acres. It was an old walnut grove, and for about $15 a square foot, he built our original winery and deli and marketplace. And at that time, we didn't have any vineyards. We purchased all our fruit, and when I started the winery in the harvest of 1980, the vineyard just to the south of us was owned by a doctor from Marin County, but it was farmed by an old timer here in the valley. His name was Charlie Volpe. And I remember meeting him about 1980, and he'd come into the tasting room, of course, all full of dust. He'd been on the tractor. He was always complaining that the trash from the picnic grounds was going into his vineyard. I said, well, Charlie, I'll do the best we can, but how about a glass of wine? And so we became good friends. And eventually in 1985, we purchased, which is now Vittorio's Vineyard. And oh boy, what a great purchase. And, and at the time, we were a little bit nervous about the price. We paid, I think $900,000 for the 34 acres. That's about what you buy an acre of vineyards for today. What a great purchase, and the rest is kind of history. And so those early years, the early 80s, there were some old vine Zinfandel. We made wine from that. And then our very first Sauvignon Blanc came from right here. And so now Vittorio's Vineyard is mostly Cabernet Sauvignon, but with a few other varieties. And we're very proud of that. So as you're driving up Highway 29, Vittorio's Vineyard is the first thing you see. We have close to about 1/3 of a mile of frontage right here on 29 for Vittorio's Vineyard, separated by a long driveway of olive trees. It's just a great position to have an estate vineyard when you have an event at the winery, or you're attending our harvest ball, or one of our many events. Our Vittorio's Vineyard lawn is actually right smack dab in the middle of the vineyard. It's just a sweet, sweet spot, and we're so very proud of the wines.
What makes this area special, it really was the origin of winemaking in Napa Valley. Most of the initial wineries and wine growing occurred here in the 1850s, 1860s, 70s. The soils here are really unique. In fact, one of the most unique spots in the entire world. There's over 21 soil types represented here. Over millennia, the oceans have entered the land, they've receded, the land's been uplifted. And as an example of that, I've got a couple of rocks that I've picked up in this very vineyard. This one is one of my favorites. It doesn't look like much, but it's my belief that this comes from the age of the dinosaurs. It's over 60 million years old. And it just gives you an idea of the history, the geologic history of this area. This is chert, green chert, and it comes from marine organisms that filtered down to the bottom of the ocean. They were compressed over eons with soil and layers of dirt, and then uplifted because of this tectonic activity. And then of course there's obsidian. Our area is very rich in obsidian from what's referred to as the Sonoma volcanics about 5 million years ago. And it's all derived from alluvial soils that have come down the mountain behind us, the Mayacamas Range on the west and the Vaca Range on the east. So our farming practices have always followed the sustainable rules. We always try to use the least impactful chemicals, whether it's herbicides, fungicides, all of the typical farming materials that all growers use. But we made a commitment in 2009 to start farming organically. And we're certified by CCOF. It's a 3-year process to get certified, so you have to show what materials you've used for 3 consecutive years. So that was in 2012. So for the last 10 years, we've been farming organically here. We feel very proud of that achievement because organic farming does cost more, and we're committed to making that as a statement to our community to protect the health of our employees, protect the health of our neighbors. We're willing to spend that extra money, but why do it does it make greater quality grapes? We believe that it does. It gives us a better understanding of soil and rejuvenate the biosphere here in our vineyard. We can see more birds, more insects, more lizards, more life across the board.
We've been producing Vittorio's Vineyard Cab for decades now, and it's certainly been part of our portfolio as one of our top cabs. Once we had really started farming Vittorio's organically, the wine to me just took on a whole nother level of complexity and flavors.
Well, I think there's a clear line between wine quality and farming operations. I think with organic farming, the health of the soil, the health of the vine is increased. The main thing is become more plush and velvety and round. These grapes often made a fairly robust, really firm wine. And that is just polished, it's smoothed out, and it's much more drinkable, much more enjoyable. The grapes evolve, and I think that's because of organic farming. I think they're benefiting more.
And just smelling this wine, it's just jumping out of the glass, that classic, savoriness to it. How would you describe this wine?
Well, it always has, of course, black fruit. I get black currant, black licorice. There's a little bit of mint, of course, olive, classical Cabernet aromas. But what makes this distinct for me is the complexity of all these things coming together in the glass, and it just effuses out of the glass. And of course, during the winemaking, we're using French oak barrels, and they play a role as well.
I love this texture of this wine on the palate. With today's Vittorio's Cab, the tannins are there, but they're really integrated. It's just almost like a fine grain.
Vittorio's Vineyard is primarily a Cabernet Sauvignon vineyard, but Cabernet lends itself to all kinds of wonderful, beautiful blends by putting in small amounts of other varieties.
Yeah, we really let Cabernet shine through. That's the challenge too, Brooks, with making a vineyard designated cab, where if you're making, let's say, a Napa Valley cab, you can blend from many, many different vineyards. When you put a vineyard name, 95% of the fruit has to come from that vineyard. So it really does speak of a place.
With single vineyard wines, the vineyard has to shine. Otherwise, you're wasting your time. So it has to have a standalone character and quality to it. So it makes it a more challenge, there's no question.
It's certainly one that we're really, really proud of. When you put Vittorio's name on something, we have to honor him, and I think we do a really good job of it. This is really the origin or the provenance of Napa Valley farming happened right here in St. Helena. And for us to be making a wine, from this dirt that was really pioneered here, I feel very proud of that. And it's just so reflective of the magic here in the Napa Valley that we're able to craft wines made from such a spectacular spot.